Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education on Monday, July 26th. If you'd please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I believe we're starting off this evening with a presentation from Windhill Solar.
Yes, ma'am. We have some guests here. Can introduce themselves and
The podium is right there.
podium right up here.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a test in dexterity.
No problem.
I'm sure.
You want to try it?
Okay. Well, thank you all for allowing me to come in this evening. My name is Chris Sternhagen. I'm the Director of Development with Edf Renewable Energy.
Go ahead, stand up.
And I'm also the principal developer of the proposed 92.5 megawatt Wild Hill Solar Project. I'm here this evening just to be transparent and open with the, part of an effort to be open and transparent with the community about our intentions, and so I'm offering some information both about EDF Renewable Energy as well as about the proposed Wild Hill Solar Project. So I've got about 10 minutes. I'm going to try to run through quite a bit of information. I'll leave a little bit of room for questions at the end if anybody has, and then if anybody would like additional information, I'm happy to connect with them another evening or another day. So if we could advance the slides here. Very quickly, I'm just going to give you guys, again, a little bit of an overview on EDF Renewables, starting with a global overview of the company so you kind of understand who they are, and then we'll talk a little bit more specific about the proposed solar project. Please go forward. Next one. So just very quickly, the company that's developing the Wild Hill Solar Project is EDF Renewables. You can see that on the right. Hopefully everybody was able to get a handout, so if you want to read up with a little bit more detail, you can. But EDF Renewables is essentially the renewable arm of a larger utility called EDF, which is headquartered in Paris, France. EDF Renewables focuses specifically on renewable energies. They're energy agnostic when it comes to what type, but primarily we're talking solar, wind, some pumped hydro, some batteries, there's some kinetic energy projects, wave energy, things like that, but all specific to renewables, with the parent being EDF. So kind of, next slide please. A very quick snapshot, financial snapshot of the EDF parent as well as the EDF Renewables in North America. But the EDF utility itself is over 70 years old. It's actually, I think, the largest utility in the world with regards to load service. EBITDA, on an annual EBITDA of about $19.6 billion. The other one I want to highlight on this slide is EDF Renewables North America, who's my employer, is headquartered out of San Diego. We've been around for over 35 years in North America developing renewable energy power plants. That's the oldest independent power producer focusing on renewable energy in the U.S. We've got a business model and a vision that has withstood the test of time, and we expect and hope that it will be another 35 years into the future. We've developed about 20 gigawatts of projects throughout North America. That's Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. Most of that being in the United States. And then I'll highlight one other statistic on this one is we also offer operations and maintenance service to renewable energy power plants, both solar and wind, and we're the largest third-party provider of those operations and maintenance contracts throughout the U.S. So we service not only EDF developed and owned power plants, but also other plants that are owned by other people as well. So next slide. Just a quick snapshot of technology and the global perspective. We own and operate a fleet of about 6.5 gigawatts of power plants in North America, about 5.2 gigawatts in Europe, and then about 3.7 gigawatts throughout the rest of the world. On the right, you can see that's broken down by technology. Most of those renewable power plants are onshore wind projects, around just under 11 gigawatts. But the two areas that are growing The fastest right now are solar, which we have about 3.7 gigawatts of power plants globally, as well as offshore wind. Right now, just under a gigawatt, but those are probably the two fastest growing sectors of the renewable energy industry as of today. And then a little bit of storage. That's growing, but a little slower. Next slide. And then to focus a little bit on EDF Renewables here in North America, we're headquartered in San Diego. I am officed out of a regional development office in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This slide gives you a little bit of information about our intent, our mission, and I want to just focus a little bit on our core values because this is something that's very important to EDF, and it's something that as an employee of EDF, we really focus on not only in the development of our projects, but in everyday activities. And that's safety, that's good sense, accountability, transparency, teamwork, respect, and passion. And being here tonight, I'm fulfilling one of those core values around transparency, and hopefully getting you guys an opportunity to contact with us if you do have questions or concerns about the proposed project. I want to make sure that you guys have a contact and an opportunity to voice those. And you can read a little bit more about some of our commitment to diversity, but in all, we're really focused on renewable energy and transitioning the not only the U.S. but the North American grid from more of a traditional fossil fuel-based fleet into a renewable energy-based fleet. Next slide, please. And then a couple highlights here. I want to mention EDF is an independent power producer focusing on renewable energy. So what we do is we develop, we own, we construct, and then we own and operate power plants, all focused in the renewable energy space. And so we originate projects, we develop them, we transact, we construct them, and then we're also asset optimization. So a project such as the Wild Hill solar project that we're proposing here in the community is not only going to be developed and constructed by EDF, but we're also going to have and employ residents for the operations and maintenance. So we will have a presence here for the life of the project itself, focusing on operations, asset optimization, and the maintenance of the plant as well. So it's a little bit unique in the independent power producing world that we have essentially a stake in each aspect of a project life cycle, from idea to retirement of that asset. And what do I mean by an independent power producer? What I mean is that we provide energy to load-serving entities, such as the utilities that charge you for your electricity use. As an IPP, I don't provide energy directly to load, to retail or commercial industries, but to those load-serving entities, or usually as a regulated utility. We do also offer contracts, which are called virtual power purchase contracts or green sleeve type arrangements with some of your larger commercial and industrial type consumers that have forward-thinking green goals or renewable energy sort of targets that they want to do as well. But I won't get into that because it gets a little complicated. So next slide. I work in the Wild Hill project falls under our grid scale power sector. So these are, what I mean by that is generally larger scale projects. In the case of the Wild Hill project, 92.5 megawatts. We also have a distributed energy solution team, which focuses more on residential applications, like rooftop for businesses or homes. We also do electric vehicle charging stations and some of those smaller things. But I'm here tonight under the grid scale power component, so you can go to the next slide. Another part of our core values is being stewards of the community. So just a quick slide there that we do focus on any opportunities in the communities where we're bringing a project and going to employ people long term. We look for opportunities to invest in that community. Just today we were meeting with the local volunteer fire department where we offered a donation there to help them with some equipment needs that they have, and tomorrow we're going to meet with the Jefferson County Fair Board as well and look at some opportunities we might have to help out that Fair Board. So we're always looking for ideas to invest in the communities that we're bringing our projects into, because like I said, we're entering the community here of Jefferson County, not to just build something and leave, but to build something and stay and become a part of that community. Next slide, please. Just a quick snapshot, and you can go forward to the next slide, of some of our customers recently. This slide shows some of the commercial and industrial customers that we've recently done business with, so some very large brands that you most likely have heard of, that we have helped them essentially to take steps to fulfill some of their their green energy goals, either from a corporate perspective or even a local perspective as well. Next slide. And then another part of our business is sale of power to more traditional regulated and unregulated utilities. So these are some of the utilities that we've worked with here most recently. Next slide. So now we'll just kind of shift gears and just talk a little bit more specific about the proposed Wild Hill Solar Project. I mentioned earlier that it's 92.5 megawatts AC. The size of the project will be about 800 acres. We're still working on some design there, so it may fluctuate there, but hopefully between about 720 and 800 acres would be the entire site. We're anticipating start of construction in 2023, maybe late 2022, with anticipated commercial operations date before the year end of 2023. And then we've got a useful plant life of between 30 and 39 years. I've got a range in there because it'll depend a little bit on some of the final equipment selection, particularly with the solar, specific solar panels and the inverters that we'll ultimately use might vary that anticipated project lifetime. Next slide, please. So a little bit more information about the site itself. So the site is located right kind of on the intersection of Cabletown Road, a little bit to the west of Cabletown Road, and then Shannondale Road to the south. So we've got, if you can kind of see that, we've got Cabletown to the east, Shannondale Road kind of to the south, and then the Cloverdale neighborhood does border part of the project there on the western. And that area shaded in green is what we would propose to have the solar panels actually covered on. And then you can see a little bit up here some of the setback distances that are being incorporated into the design itself. So the design, we're at about a 30% design right now. So as we get an approach right around 50 and 60%, we'll start to see more of where the actual solar blocks will go. The panels will actually be built in blocks. We try to keep the blocks as square as possible. And then there'll be access roads in between those blocks for our operations and maintenance folks to get into. The solar panels themselves are a DC electric generation source. All of that power will be collected by cables that will run underneath the panels, and they'll go back to a project substation that we're building just underneath the First Energy transmission line, which you can see highlighted there in red. And then there's two little blocks there. There'll be a small switch yard where the DC power will be switched to AC conditioned. A substation where that will happen. It will be stepped up to voltage of 138, which is that transmission line voltage. Then there'll be a switch yard that'll be owned and operated by First Energy, who owns that transmission line, and the power will actually be interconnected into First Energy's distribution or transmission system there. Once the power is on the grid, it's on the grid ultimately, and it'll be pulled off of that First Energy system as needed. So it gives you a little bit of idea of kind of how the site will lay out there. No new overhead transmission lines at all. That First Energy existing transmission line will be broke, and the lines will be brought into that substation. So there won't be any new lines at all that are included into this particular project. You can see on the setbacks there, we've got about 100 feet around the outside of the project. With the exception of the Cloverdale neighborhood, we're actually going to do a little bit further setback around 200 feet there, and then we'll also be adding some vegetative screening along that property line as well to lessen any visual impacts from the Cloverdale neighborhood. So next slide. Question I often get, so I try to head this one off, is why Jefferson County and why right here? So I just kind of bulleted out. These are really the key components that bring somebody like myself in as a renewable developer. The biggest one being rising demand for renewable energy, particularly locally sourced renewable energy. And we're not too far here in Jefferson County from a very high electric using area in Server Alley. We've got a lot of tech companies that have a lot of big server facilities really close here, and those servers draw a ton of power. And those companies that operate on them generally want to go green. They want the energy that they're consuming for their business to come from renewable energy sources. So obviously when you're selling anything, you want to go where there's customers, and this particular area is well suited in that regard because there is a high demand for renewable and clean energy here that's local. The other big ones are access to existing transmission infrastructure. Building new transmission is very expensive, and it's very challenging. So to the extent that we can site a project near existing infrastructure and make use of available capacity that might already be on that transmission system is a huge advantage. And one of the reasons that we're here, because the first energy line that we are interconnecting to is already there, and it does have capacity on that line. So essentially, we're going to interconnect this 92.5 megawatts of solar energy onto that transmission line without really any major upgrades to the transmission line itself. There's already electrical space on that line. So that's a big driver because transmission, upgrading it or building new is very cost prohibitive. And then we found a supportive community here. The solar panels will be put on land that's currently in agriculture, and it's done through a lease agreement with those property owners. And so we started with the property owners, and everybody that we've talked to, since then has been quite supportive of the project. And that's really important because, as I mentioned, these are communities that we're becoming a member of. And so obviously without support of the community, a project like this, it really just doesn't get off the ground. So that's been a big driver as well as to why here in Jefferson County. So next slide. Just a couple notes on what does this mean for the community. As with a lot of different economic development, there are tax revenues that are generated through the addition of a project such as this that will benefit the community. There's lease payments with the landowners. And I look personally at solar energy as really a variation of ag use and existing land use. Now it clearly changes the traditional agricultural practices of row-till farming because we are putting solar panels on it. But I look at it more akin to something like a farmer or somebody putting some land into CRP, because we are going to have to plant some vegetative cover underneath those panels, and generally that's going to be a perennial. That's going to restore that soil. That's going to eliminate water and wind erosion that you definitely see through the tillage process. And at the end of that lease period, that ground will most likely go back into a more traditional form of agriculture. So it's really kind of a win-win from an ecological standpoint, as well as offering landowners and farmers a chance to diversify their income and not be quite so tied to the commodity markets for corn and soybeans and oats and some of the other products, and the swings that they go through on an annual basis because of weather and because of those commodity markets and stuff like that. We've got jobs, like I mentioned, for the construction alone, we're probably looking at about 150 to 170 temporary construction workers. A lot of them will be employed locally from local. We are teamed up with local unions, so they will be providing a lot of the labor for this project. And then we've got long-term operations and maintenance jobs as well that we'll look to hire locally here. That will actually be the ones that will operate the plant going forward. And I would expect that, as the project continues to operate, their kids will be part of the school system as well into the future. Next slide, please. I talked a little bit about this. I won't go into too much, but we will have some vegetative screening along property lines to make sure that folks that may live close by aren't impacted by adding these solar panels. The panels will be non-reflective glare, so they're not going to be like super shiny or anything like that. There's no noise in the operation of these solar panels, so you won't expect any impacts there. And then we will be putting in a perennial, cover underneath the panels as well. Depending on what that seed mix is, that might require some mowing from time to time or grazing if the opportunity is available with sheep or chickens or something to that effect. But we really focus on, when we're putting these panels in, to create that buffer space and create that green space within the project to hopefully lessen the visual impact and not change sort of the view shed of the area. Next slide, please. A little bit about equipment safety. All the equipments are safe and non-toxic. Even if there is a panel break or something to that effect, you don't have to worry about any concerns about leaching or any worries about groundwater. There's really no risk to the environment. Construction does not use concrete. There's no excavation or concrete foundations. All of the rackings will be driven in by pilings and then removed completely at the end of the project. And we don't use any pesticides or herbicides that you usually expect to see in a more traditional agricultural environment at all. So it really is a win-win from an ecology and economic standpoint. Next slide, please. We kind of talked a little bit about these already, so let's go to the next slide. I want to hit this one off because I have gotten these questions. There will not be any dynamite or serious excavation at all here, so you don't have to worry about that. Soil disturbance will be at a minimum. Like I said, with the perennial grasses that we will actually put in here, they have a much deeper root system than your annuals do, and so you're gonna get a huge benefit to the soil over the course of the project lifespan, and no erosion, and letting that soil really restore itself over that period of time. I think that's all I got on this one. We can go to the next slide. And then I just want to show you a couple quick pictures of some renderings of what is this going to look like, all right? So this is a picture of a similar site without any solar panels on it. And go to the next slide. Now you can see this is kind of what the edge of it will look like. You can see the solar panels there with some fencing around it. Still doesn't have any vegetative screening installed yet. And then go to the next slide. And then this is that same project with some vegetative screening. This is about 3 to 6 months. So we will be installing vegetative screening per Jefferson County standard. So there will be about, I think, 3 or 4 different layers of different, both coniferous and deciduous trees. So you'll have cover in the winter, as well as in the summer. And then you go to the next slide. And then that's after about 5 to 7 years at full growth. Now, so hopefully the idea is that we're not really impacting the view shed than what you normally would see. So I just wanted to give you guys a little heads up on that. And I think you can go to the next one, and that kind of wraps it up for me. I'll take any questions you guys might have.
I have lots
Yep.
of
No,
questions.
not from the.
Sorry, sir. Do
Sorry.
any?
No.
Of course
Okay.
not. I have some questions.
Yeah.
So why are you presenting this to this board today?
So my intent tonight is to, like I mentioned earlier, provide transparency on this project. To be able to get in front of the school board, in front of the constituents that are involved in school business, and let you guys understand what's going on, and offer a point of contact for you all.
So you've already started the process, it's already, what stage of the process are you in?
So I would consider it we're in the very late stages of development. We have got an approved concept plan from Jefferson County, and we'll be moving forward through the.
Jefferson County Commission, or?
Yeah, that's correct, yep. And so we've got a couple other development items that we'll work on, and design work here now going really through the next year. We've got our contractors lined up. We've got the power off sales lined up. So really just kind of closing out the development piece now, finishing up the design, and then preparing for construction in
So
late
you don't
2022.
need anything from this board?
Not asking
Just,
any action on the board tonight, no.
Were you recruited by some entity
No.
to come here?
Nope.
You just discovered Jefferson County on your own?
Um,
Just curious why.
For the project to
Yeah.
be here?
Mm.
So part of, certainly not recruited at all, no. We have a process that we go through that helps us to identify areas of new growth and new opportunities for projects. And for a lot of the reasons I mentioned earlier, Jefferson County was a big one. Really the big draw, like I mentioned, for an IPP developer like myself is having that need for local green energy. That's an opportunity.
You said you were gonna, it sounds like you want to supply energy to the, DC, Northern Virginia area, is that right?
Yep.
And, maybe this is like inexpensive land. Would our community or state benefit in any way from your project?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Besides the temporary jobs?
yeah, so we've got the temporary jobs, we've got the long-term jobs. The project will generate tax income and revenue for the county as well. And then we've got lease payments with the local landowners as well, are kind of the big economic ones. And then adding, the decarbonization, helping the state meet some decarbonization targets by adding solar energy to the state would also be a benefit I would mark down.
Is there any guarantee on any of these jobs that they would go to, people from West Virginia?
The operations and maintenance or the construction?
Any of it?
Yeah, so with the construction, we'll start with the construction. Yes, because we do have an agreement in place with all the local unions, so they will be providing the balance of the unionized labor and electrical work here, so that all should be local. And then for the operations and maintenance, we will bring in an experienced tech from another site, which will help with the hiring and the training process, but we would look to the local workforce to supply those jobs as well.
So there isn't any real guarantee, right? They're just with the union, right? The construction local union, you're guessing that you'll use employees, but there's no guarantee. There's nothing written in your agreement with anybody.
I don't know. No, I mean, obviously, we're subject, just like any other hiring body,
I'm
to
just
local
curious.
talent and experience level. But that would be the intent.
And how long are you gonna be there?
So the project should, lifespan will be between 30 and 39 years.
And then what
So that
happens?
takes us out to 2050 something. So at the end of the project, two things could happen. We will have a decommissioning agreement per state regulations to either decommission the project in its entirety, or we could look to essentially release with the property owners and repower the project for another 30 to 39 years at that point. But as part of the certificate, the site certificate with the State Public Utilities Commission, we will have a decommissioning agreement in place, which will include a bond to secure the costs for that.
Do the big solar panels, they have a lifespan then of
30 to 39 years, yep,
or
depending on
something?
which one we
So
actually use.
then what do you do with the trash? Like,
The panels and stuff, a lot of it will be recycled, and then some will be landfilled.
landfilled in San Diego?
Most likely locally here
I'm
somewhere.
joking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think that's all my questions.
Any other board members have any questions or comments?
Very good. Well, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Superintendent, moving on to 2B, staff appreciation, recruitment and retention.
Yes, ma'am. I will share my screen with folks, and thank you very much. So one of the things that you've seen and we've talked about frequently is Jefferson County schools and school systems in general being a microcosm of the community that they serve, both locally and nationally. And one of the things that came out of the pandemic was, well, there are several things, but folks had a great deal of disengagement. They were disconnected from their jobs, disconnected from their usual support systems, and there was a lot of anxiety. Folks had a lot of time on their hands to sort of like rethink their lives, rethink their options. And post-COVID, there's been a lot of movement, and there, quite frankly, has been a lot of redistribution of occupations and workers. You've seen throughout our community and in others, there's been a bit of an upheaval in the job market. And one of the things that we have been working on, and this is just accelerated this, is looking at the recruitment and retention incentives for our staff. And one of the things that we talk about when we're talking about engaging staff, employees who are engaged, they want to know that they're valued, that we value them not just as a teacher or as a service personnel, as a secretary, but as a person. You know their kids, you know their lives, you know their likes and dislikes, that they feel safe showing up as whoever they are. They don't have to conform to some kind of groupthink. Come in, talk about how you feel, how it's the same or different than how other people feel, and we work through that. And they have like a sense of belonging, that this is a good place for them. High engagement teams, and Dr. Nishi did some research on this. There is a significant difference in the amount of turnover from high engagement versus low engagement employees. So one of the things that we really looked at when you look at what drives engagement, not a lot of them are monetary. A lot of them are about how you treat folks. They have to have a job that feels significant to them. They have to have some autonomy and control. They have to get feedback and rewards for very specific behaviors and know what those are. They have to feel that the decisions being made are fair and transparent, and they have to have some work-life balance. They give a lot into their work, and they need to know that when they need to step away for their family, that that's okay. So a lot of what we're working on are things to address that. So first and foremost, one of the things to understand is there has been an ongoing significant decline in the number of individuals going into the teaching profession in general. It's been declining by a little over 2% per year for several years now. Some data, the average teacher age in the U.S. is now 46.5 years, and they are increasing to age. The last time we did a review of our own staff, we had nearly a third of our staff who were within 3 years of retirement age. So there are a lot of factors that are driving a high degree of competitiveness in the teaching market. Now, that's been the case increasingly for a while. Actually, we are at the point where we employ about 45 long-term subs a year. Now, these are folks who have bachelor's degrees, right? They also have some training from us about how to conduct themselves in a classroom, behavior management, but they're not trained as teachers. So it takes an enormous investment of time and effort and training on our part to help them be successful, because often they know content, but they didn't necessarily learn a lot about child development or pedagogy. So there are both some supply factors and some demand factors. So if you look on the demand side, this picture was actually me driving back from dropping my mom off at the airport, and I handed her the phone. I did not take this picture while I was driving. And this was me passing the panel truck for Washington County Public Schools that has this great big banner on all sides and drives through the Eastern Panhandle, drives through Loudoun, drives through Maryland, and right now their new teacher starting salary is $55,726. You have a bachelor's degree, you have a teaching license, that's your starting salary. If you are in Jefferson County schools and you have a bachelor's degree and teaching license, to get to $55,726, you have to work here for 28 years. Exactly. It is appallingly, just the difference is amazing. So one of the things I think is pretty important is that there needs to be an enormous amount of credit and respect to the people who do work here. They make enormous sacrifices to be able to stay here. They want to stay in the community they love. They want to care for their kids, and we could not be more grateful to them. At the end of the day, though, we also have to, they're working for us, we have to work for them. And this isn't just teachers. We are struggling to fill custodian positions, cook positions. When you can get a $1,500 signing bonus over at the track, it's hard to get someone here for the salaries that we're offering. Now, I want folks to understand we already do a lot to make this as competitive as we can. There's a 3-step pay increase for special education teachers, for math teachers, national board certified teachers. We match, so we double what the state offers them as an annual bonus. Everybody gets a step increase. The state provides an attendance bonus just for professionals. We offer a therapeutic supplement for special education staff who also have medical criteria like OT, PT, psychs, SLPs. We do free dental insurance for all of our staff, individual and family. We do free vision insurance. We have an EAP program that offers mental health support and service support for our employees. Our community has been incredibly generous with us and very supportive of education in providing additional funding through the levy to help supplement salaries for individuals. However, with those significant differences, it's still not salary that drives folks here. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to look at several different areas that we could address support for our staff. This is an informational session to convey these ideas to the board. We've talked to several different groups of staff. We're putting this out here. Any additional ideas that you have or things that you don't believe you could support, we'll make changes, and then all of this goes out to our entire staff as a survey. We bring their results back. I'll go over at the end of our process, but I just want to be clear, these aren't things that we've done. They're not set in stone. They're simply things that we've heard from staff. So under the banner of compensation, certainly salary increase, everyone would love to have that, whether it's across the board or whether it's to target strategic areas. It has to be sustainable post-COVID. We do have funding now, thanks to the CARES Act, but any salary increase we have to be able to carry through over time. A service personnel career ladder. Quite frankly, we'd like to be far more aggressive in pushing legislatively for a lot more latitude in reclassifying service personnel to higher grades. Our service personnel are the backbone of this school system, and they do a tremendous amount of work and serve children and families, and the pay scale for those are just not sustainable for a family. Many of them have to have second jobs, or they're here for the insurance, or to have the same schedule as their families. Part of that is we are very committed, and you'll see some of this later, to providing individuals in service positions with the ability to increase their education levels and move their positions to professional true positions and increase their compensation. They need a career ladder. For an educational institution, and we're telling people that's how you improve your lives and your children's lives, then we need to give everybody an opportunity to get to that. Another thing that we've heard about, and we've seen other systems doing as well, are loyalty payments, which is essentially if you re-up for us and renew your contract for another year, then we provide a payment, and you have to stay for your entire year for the contract to be able to qualify for that. We also are very interested in creating higher level positions within job titles. So for instance, oftentimes really great teachers feel like they have to go and become administrators in order to get higher salaries. What we would like to do is create teacher leadership and master teacher programs where they achieve higher levels of certification and they can become master teachers. You don't have to leave the classroom. If you're the best at what you do, let us pay you more and let you train other people to do that. I would say the same, and you're going to see another presentation after this one, for coaches who have an incredibly difficult job. And at every level, we want to be able to incentivize folks to continue to educate themselves, to serve at the highest levels, and to be able to do the jobs they love without having to get out of those to feel like, to be able to be compensated. Badging and credentialing, for a lot of folks taking a college class is a lot of time and money. So badging and credentialing and micro-credentialing, you may have heard about, but it's simply, you take a very narrow skill set. I need you to learn these things, these behavior techniques, or this particular pedagogy, or this restorative practice. And you go through a series of classes, and you verify that someone's capable of doing them, and they can demonstrate it for you. They get the credentialing, and then they get the additional compensations that comes with that, and the additional recognition for those. In looking, in addition to compensation, we've talked to folks about benefits. Childcare. We previously, when I say we, this is before I got here, it was a childcare benefit where you basically gave people money to help pay for childcare. That had its drawbacks. You had to be able to find the childcare. Sometimes it didn't have openings. Oftentimes the money wasn't enough to cover the childcare. So one of the things that we would like to explore, and there are, don't get me wrong, many barriers to this, is providing our own child care center. I've been in school systems in other states where we utilized our CTE program for folks who wanted to become preschool teachers, and we created and staffed a preschool program and before and after school program that was staffed with our kids who needed to get their hours. School systems, if we did that, we would also have to have that program be licensed as a child care center, which is a whole separate process. So that's one thought. Tuition reimbursement, everybody's familiar with that. A relocation bonus. Jefferson County does well when our taxpayers do well. If we have folks, oftentimes it's an expensive place to live, if they are willing to be employed here and to move into the county so that they're contributing to the tax base, a relocation bonus would often be a good benefit. Another thing that we've heard from staff is they sometimes feel a little overwhelmed that they're so busy taking care of other people's families that they don't take care of their own. So one of the ideas that we have, we say family first all the time when we speak with folks. We hope that we live that, but we also want a very tangible sign of that. So our thought was if we give every staff person one family first day where we say, hey, go on your own kids' field trip. Go see your niece inducted into the Marine Corps. Go, help your mom move into an assisted care facility. You got to take care of your own family. And not necessarily use up your sick leave or your LWC. Take a day for your family. That's honoring that. Attendance incentive match. Currently the state gives an attendance incentive, but they only give it to professionals. We believe that while they perhaps may have their reasons for that, we greatly value our service staff, and we believe that we should be matching that and extending that same benefit to service employees who show up every day, drive the buses, cook the meals, serve the kids. They deserve the same consideration. And also to expand the service scholarship program. Right now, we have a scholarship program, and we've had 13 service personnel get their associate's degrees, which is fantastic. We need to extend that class. We'd like to be able to provide additional class and maybe purchase a lending library so they don't have to buy their textbooks. They can use them. Right now we've set up a brokering swap system so folks who've already gone through can give their books to somebody else or let them use them, and some study groups. But most of us are here because we think education is the path out of poverty, and education is the way to a higher functioning democracy, and we need to live that and not just say it. Engagement, staff development, autonomy. A lot of folks, they're teachers. Most of them love to learn. Service personnel love to learn. They don't necessarily love the degree of structure that we have around it. We had huge turnout for our online staff devs. We actually had to up our Zoom license because they were filling up. So we believe that a good, inexpensive way for us to show some respect for the staff is give them some flexibility in doing these. We have 4 staff dev days, have at least 2 of them where they can complete them on their own. We have programs that verify that they watched all of them. We have programs that verify they test at the end. So it's not a matter of no accountability. It's a matter of trusting your staff, trust but verify, but give them the flexibility. Yes, you set standards for where folks need to be. Let them get there the way that works for them. Engagement and social emotional funding. Our staff pour a lot of energy into kids. We want to put some energy back into them. They spend a lot of time at school, a lot of time. And giving each school a fund to work through some social emotional support, activities for engagement, some materials and supplies in their schools that are led by their staff. What would help you be more comfortable here spending time, would help you when you're really stressed out. You've been, bitten twice today, and you really just need to take a step back. How can I help you with that? Service personnel student allocation. This one is a little different. I haven't heard of anybody else doing this. Maybe they do. But right now we give teachers the state gives teachers, and we add to it, several $100s a year to buy materials and supplies for their kids. I use them for the incentives, they use them to help teach kids. We don't do the same for service. And a lot of the service personnel, bus drivers who buy boxes of incentives for kids, to fidgets and things to give them for prizes on their bus for behavior, aides who buy their own worksheets and things for kids. So the idea is that we would support them in the same way. Now again, this isn't just handing out money. It's they have to order things for kids and they use them in their jobs. Right now, service personnel, unlike teachers, can't write that off on their taxes. So, you know, it's a good way for us to support them and acknowledge their work. Advisory committee, right now we have faculty senate. And we meet with faculty senate. We were meeting monthly during the pandemic. Typically we meet once a quarter or every other month, depending on the timing of the year, with the faculty senate. We don't have the same with service, and sometimes they have very different groups. So the idea is that we would take a professional and service personnel from every school to meet with the leadership team every quarter. Discuss initiatives, make suggestions, discuss our progress towards goals. Communication is a big issue in a system this size, and sometimes what comes from one place, in telephone tree, is a very different thing when it gets to someone else in the organization in every possible direction. This isn't a staff thing, but we've also discussed we'll be doing the same thing for students. We do that for high school right now, but we don't do it for middle or for elementary. And personal goals, making sure that our administrators are both supporting teachers in pursuing professional goals, but also personal goals to help keep them engaged. So one of the things that is really important for us is that all of these people come here because they need to be seen and valued. They have families, they have things that are important to them, and they need to be seen as people and supported in the way that they live their lives. So from here, we want to take feedback from the building administration, professional and service staff. Once we get that feedback and categorize their feedback into what they want most is most valuable to them, we look and see if we need to make any policy changes in order to be able to do that. Then we do a cost analysis of those and a timeline for how long it would take to implement, and then we bring it back to the board for our final recommendations and their consideration. So I am happy to entertain any questions or suggestions of things to add to this.
Yeah, I have a couple of suggestions.
Yes,
I
ma'am,
noticed
certainly.
several teachers have GoFundMe pages. They're asking for donations for supplies, and I feel like it's really embarrassing. I mean, with all this CARES money that we hear about, I know that they get several $100s, like you said, but apparently many still need more money. I think that would be helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
And the other thing is, I think a serious problem is conflict resolution with staff and administration. I brought through just the issue of some teachers who were upset with the school board, and they were threatening to leave, and 3 of them now have left. 3 teachers at Washington are gone. And it was all based on being upset over the school board policies. And I feel like we could have stopped it. I mean, I tried to stop it, but I don't know how it got so bad that they got letters. They felt like they were being reprimanded for speaking up. And so there needs to be a safe place for teachers. And it's not fair to say, well, you have a union, because you have to pay for that, and the union, they don't get involved unless they believe they're going to win, because they have lawyers that they have to pay. So I think it would help a lot to have a program for conflict resolution, just training administrators and staff in things like the Imago dialogue method that I'm sure you're familiar with. That would go a long way. Those are my 2 suggestions.
Thank you, ma'am.
I know you're gonna hate this question, but how quickly can we implement some of these things once we get feedback on them?
That depends on which ones. Some of them right away. If they don't require policy changes or the board will need to, some of them would require a board vote, right, before the next board meeting. But some of them, depending on how quickly we get feedback from folks, we could implement as early as what. And if you wish to implement any of them prior to feedback from the staff, there's nothing to prevent you from doing so. But I would certainly say before the start of school. Yes.
Good answer.
Thank you, ma'am.
And, I mean, this could be just a living process where, like you said, if 3 things are an easy no-brainer, okay, check, 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 we'll do those 3 things and we'll keep working on, you know, whatever else comes up. I mean, if we get a suggestion from a staff member that, yes, it's gonna take some digging into policy change, you know, we could always make a change in October to add that benefit. I mean, we don't have to wait an entire school year to add a benefit, correct?
Absolutely. No, ma'am, we do not. Now, if we come back with ones, we'll have a timeline for those because some of them may require process changes in finance. Some of them may require us to make some headway with WVDE or with legislators. We'll come back with those, and so you'll know which ones are short term that you can implement right away, and some of which might be longer term ones, and the fiscal implications of those.
I think it's always good anytime we can provide feedback to the legislature on what we'd like to see instead of getting what they want done. I think that's always a positive, because there are things I think that need to be changed, and I know we've worked on a lot of those already, but I don't see any of those recommendations I don't think are, at least, for now, very important to look into and get feedback from, because, you know, they may change and evolve and whatnot based on the feedback. You know, I do appreciate the child care piece and the possibility of the center. I know we've talked about that for a long time. I think it's extremely important. I like the connection to the CTE piece to provide even a possible, you know, with the classes that we can now offer through dual enrollment, having a possible child care certification or a 2-year early childhood education degree before you leave Jefferson County Schools based on that environment. Because we'd have our own training ground there instead of having to do that in an internship, which I think would be a great idea for students as well. As well, frankly, we've talked about the need to provide that for our students who become pregnant. And, you know, they need to finish their education. And we need a place where they can be that does not inhibit them from getting an education. And then we have fathers and mothers who then get, frankly, mandatory time in learning how to parent and teach children and be with children. I think all of those things are positive as far as building a community together. So, in my opinion, I think that's a huge goal, but a great goal that we need to really push towards as well. And I like being able to recognize all of those other pieces as well. It's important.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you for taking the time to visit this again. It's something that we've been working on for a long time.
Yes, ma'am. It has been.
All right. 2C, restorative practices and coaching.
Yes, ma'am. I am sharing my screen. Oh, okay. Hold on. It wants to keep going back to the last presentation, and I don't want it to do that. I would like for it to go to the new presentation. Give me just a second. I apologize. Okay, so we'll close this out. And
Mrs. Harner, I saw you messing. Did you put the air conditioner down a little bit? Because I see some people are melting. So
yeah, folks are dying. Dying on the vine here. Okay, so I am now sharing my screen. So one of the things that we have been working on for the last 2 years, restorative practices, conflict resolution. Several years ago, we started this project with our staff in training and restorative practices. We saw that one of the areas we were having a significant amount of conflict in was athletics, quite frankly. It has evolved over time, that people are very, very passionate about athletics, and sometimes that passion comes through as conflict, and it has evolved to the point where we have even had to step in and have licensed counselors mediate between groups of parents who have been fairly aggressive or threatening. So we've worked really hard both to set some boundaries for the protection of our staff and protection of our children, but we've also worked on the other end of things to say athletics are one of the first best places where children learn a lot of the skills they're going to need in life, and we need to give our coaches the best tools for supporting those. So we have engaged in a process of restorative practice, and Mr. Dave Byans, who is our athletic director at Wildwood Middle School, is here to give you a little bit more information.
So when you talk about restorative practice, getting into the why, one of the main objectives of education-based athletics is character development, positive character development, and a lot of people consider that inherent to just participation, but studies actually show that the coach can have a huge impact on that positive character development, and whether or not it's a good experience for that child. Equipping our coaches with tools and strategies to deal with challenges is going to help produce more positive outcomes in our programs. The second bullet point here, decrease in number of coaches whose primary job is a teacher with a background in child development. That's actually not a Jefferson County issue. It's not a state issue. That's a national issue. It's been going on for, we're closing in on 40 years. A quick Google search will bring up articles from 1983 on the topic. Teachers aren't coaching, and we're relying on, like the first bullet or second bullet point, like it says, we're relying on people that aren't trained in child care or child development, and not that they can't be trained that, but we have to give them the tools to get there. Using restorative practices is going to help. It's going to give our, I'm sorry, my phone went off. Using restorative practices is going to give our coaches tools to navigate situations and problems when they arise that in a manner that we expect in an education setting, and ways that are going to produce positive outcomes. Increase in conflicts in athletics. There's always going to be conflict. It's inevitable. Being able to navigate that conflict, make sure that the person who caused the conflict takes responsibility for it. The person who has caused harm is made to feel whole again. But we're not going to avoid the conflict. We need to give our coaches ways to deal with it that are going to be positive. Significant lack of applicants for coaching positions. Our goal with this is actually to get to the point where we don't have to post a lot of coaching positions, and we don't have turnover, that we find good coaches, we mentor them, we keep them in the fold, and they continue to work with our student athletes. We can't have our programs without coaches, and right now we don't have enough of them. And the number one reason that coaches say that they want to get out of coaching is parent-coach conflict. And you can say that either way, coach-parent conflict, parent-coach. It depends on the perspective, but the perspectives are a lot of different realities with our coaches. So we want to get to a point where we're growing our coaching pool. We're training our non-teacher coaches, and we're also trying to figure out a way to get more teachers back into coaching. And the last point, increasing complexity of the WVSSAC travel NCAA rules. I have a list of things that have been added to coaches' duties in the last 12 to 15 years. Now they work 3 weeks in the summer. They get 12 flex days per year. A flex day is a practice outside of the normal season. Most coaches are doing that. If they want to have successful programs, they're putting in that time. If you're a non-teacher coach, it's almost a $300 investment up front to even get into coaching. They have to renew that every year, and there's a monetary investment there. They have 3 online courses. They're responsible for emergency action plans. This next one, I think the state was actually a little bit behind on, but they're now required for CPR and to have CPR and AED training. And on top of that, the WVSSAC votes on rule changes once a year. So just as an overall coaching mentor program or coach support program, restorative practice is going to be a very good start to it to help us navigate through these issues. And I will turn it over to Dr. Gibson.
Thank you very much, and I would like to point out that the trainings that we've done, Mr. Vines, Mr. Bill Stewart, Ms. Tanya Dallas-Lewis, Mr. Alex White, Dr. Lee Ebersol, Ms. Jen Moss, we've done a tremendous amount of work in putting together the training and delivering them. And it means a lot to coaches coming from athletic directors that they respect and that they know have done it. Several of our trainers have been coaches themselves, so they've lived it. So basically, as Mr. Vine said, conflict is inevitable, so you need to see it as an opportunity to build a better relationship from there. When we teach about restorative practice, they're very basic concepts of having respect for every individual, regardless of the place where they're coming from, reaching out and building relationships with those individuals, taking responsibility when there's been some breach of that, when there's been harm. Oftentimes what we'll hear from folks when there's been some sort of conflict, that they didn't intend to hurt the other person. And the reality is intentions don't always match what happens with the other person. So if you take responsibility for that, you can repair that relationship with the other person. We talked to them about you have 2 kids and one of them goes over and smacks the other one, and you make them apologize to their sister. If you make them apologize, that it doesn't mean that there's the feeling behind it, and it doesn't mean that relationship gets repaired. You have to work through with all of the parties so that they see the harm that their behavior has done to another, see how the other person perceives it, and then repairs that relationship and like reintegrates into a team, reintegrates into society. So if someone harms another, it's not just the person who is the victim, it's the person who does the harm. They have to be able to reconcile and get back in relationship to move forward. So we talk a lot about the difference between traditional discipline and restorative practice, and I think one of the most important things that gets misconstrued is that restorative practice does not mean that there's no accountability. There are still consequences for misbehavior. There are always consequences for misbehavior. The difference is that the consequences are ones that lead them back into a positive relationship rather than there's a conflict, I punish you, I tell you that I've punished them, and we move on. The 2 of you aren't ever brought back together. Number 1, you don't ever figure out how you hurt this person and how not to do it again. You don't ever have an opportunity to tell them how you felt and also to see what might have driven that, and for the 2 of you to understand each other a little better. Not that you're going to go holding hands and skipping and sing Kumbaya after, but it is a good model for how adults who disagree on really important things. If you haven't seen that, people disagree on some really important things these days, and if they do it well and in a restorative way, we don't ask anybody to change their mind. We ask them to open it and just hear the other person, treat them as if they have value and meaning, and then agree to move along together, right? You don't have to agree with each other, but you have to have some respect and you have to have restoration. So there's a lot of research that went into using restorative practice, decreases in suspensions, increases in attendance, actually increases in reading levels. Having that restorative process where you feel integrated in the classroom. And interestingly enough, stress reduction, which given the social emotional health of our athletes and our students is a really big deal these days. So what we're trying to do with this training is make sure that they understand the how, the actual methods that they use. We guide them through practices. They do scenarios with us sitting there and coaching them and talking through how they could handle each one of these scenarios. Thanks to the ADs and administrators, we had lots of examples, real life examples for them to walk through and say, wow, how would you get through this? We have worked with them to develop some very specific support materials. We actually worked with an advanced group who were at level 2 and created pre-season meeting outlines with all the steps of restorative practice and including things about communication and about expectations. And we're creating an archive of those for every sport so that the coaches use them consistently across the county. Kids know what to expect, parents know what to expect, and we know that they're using restorative practices. We are also going to be, as the next level, verifying that they're using those in their day-to-day coaching. So right now we have 67 head and assistant coaches who've been through level 1. We just did level 2 this summer, so we've had 15 folks who've gone through that. And generally we've gotten positive feedback from them. Our goal is, as we stated earlier, make sure they take the level training, make sure we verify through artifacts that they're actually using it, not just hearing it, but implementing it. We would like to create a master coach designation, set up a mentoring structure where they're bringing on young new coaches and helping mentor and develop them. Not that it just happens from watching someone on a sideline, but it's purposeful, meaningful. And that for those master coaches, we differentiate their coaching stipends. For some of these folks, if you sit down and you break out that coaching stipend by the number of hours that they put in, it is atrocious. It's atrocious. They can do almost anything else and they would make more money. They do it for the love of it, and they need to be compensated for supporting us and getting another generation of coaches coming up behind them, because that is a very important concept right now. So, any other insights to share from the training?
I don't believe so. Like Dr. Gibson mentioned, I did have more than one coach that said after they went through that training that they wish they'd have had it, years ago. That they would have maybe dealt with a few situations differently had they been through that training.
Absolutely. So we just wanted to update you on that, and as we go through that process, that may well be one of the things that we bring back to you for your consideration for the master coach designation and the stipend change.
Question.
Go ahead.
Is that an in-house program, or is that something purchased outside the restorative practices?
It is, we're delivering it in-house. We had several of our staff go and train in restorative practices, and then they are delivering the training in-house.
And the other question, maybe there used to be a policy where teachers were given priority to be coaches, and then I think that changed with the legislation, and I wonder if that negatively impacted the number of coaches, because just curious
I don't
if that
think
had any impact.
That problem's been around long before that legislative change, so I'm not sure how much of an impact that had on it. Essentially, most athletic directors are going to choose an in-house an educator in their building as the coach if they have somebody that's in their building that knows what's expected and is ready to dedicate to it. I don't think that legislation really affected our coaches pool. I mean, it may have, but.
Well, I was a coach, and I got the job because I was a teacher.
Right.
And then right after it was changed, and
Yeah.
so there's a whole different set of policies, so just curious.
You mentioned 65 had level 1 and 15 had level 2. Do you have any idea how many coaches total we have in our system between middle and high school?
I can tell
Like
you
if we
there's
hit just
71
a-
in middle school.
Okay.
And
I
we
know
have
that.
4 middle schools,
Yeah.
and then at high school, I think we came up with a little over 100, 100
That probably sounds
something.
about
It was
right.
a little
yeah.
over 100 for each high school. So we have a lot of coaches. We're trying to do it by season so that we hit them right before the season, and
And it's fresh.
COVID was a nightmare trying to do that. We had to cancel the spring one once, and then we had to cancel it again, and then we bumped it to do it with the next winter one, and then we bumped it to do it with the spring one, and then they canceled it again
Yeah.
because we were under lockdown from the governor. So we're trying to do some catching up on that.
What was the name of that program that the teachers went out or staff went and took? Just curious.
Restorative practices in action.
Oh, okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
I just have a comment to, I don't think when Mr. Vines received his award that we were able to recognize him in person. So since he's here, if you could explain to everyone the way you were honored in the award that you won, I think it's important that we recognize you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I was nominated for the West Virginia, I'm the West Virginia nominee for the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association, NIAAA, has an award of merit, and it's just someone that is a proponent and an advocate for interscholastic athletics, and I was West Virginia's nomination this year, so I'm not sure when we'll find out about the national award, but that was it. So I appreciate that.
Great job.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. All right. Operations update?
Unfortunately, Miss White is unable to join us, so she gave me her notes because she's exquisitely prepared for the operations update. I, however, am not the operations person, so if you feel the need to ask a question, perhaps I will write that down and share it with Ms. White. So first and foremost, we do want to announce and thank the individuals who worked on it. The Paige Jackson Outdoor Classroom is finally complete. That has been a multi-year project. Roger Ethier and a lot of good volunteers, including the Engineers Without Borders, did all of the work. The funds for materials were donations from individual and corporate donors. And this outdoor classroom is one that you will want to go to yourself. Actually, you should go see it. It's pretty amazing. It has a garden space, a shady shelter with 6 Leopold benches. I don't even presume to know what a Leopold bench is, but I will find out for you. Mud kitchen, a labyrinth, 6 birdhouses, a bluebird trail, and raised garden beds. Fencing, a little sprout portable solar water pump with a timer to irrigate the garden beds, a literacy reading space, an art center, including a plexiglass art wall, chalkboard walls, 5 looms, a small stage, and a music wall. Construction digging area, and a science center with a wetlands marsh area, including a deck, roping, and 4 enlarged Leopold benches with writing desks capable of seating 12. A locked storage area, a balance scale, a geoboard, and a tic-tac board. So it's a pretty impressive structure. It is not just a tent pitched outside under which people can move rocks around. So bond projects and maintenance, as we stated earlier, we have a great group of citizens who are very supportive of public education here in Jefferson, and we like to make sure that they know exactly where their money's going. For those who haven't yet, we do have on our website a ClickUp project board. Anyone can go on there and click at any time, and it has a list of every single project we have. You click on it and you can see where it is in development, and we're bringing monthly reports. So C.W. Shipley, the flooring is complete there. We are waiting on a shipment of transition strips to go between the floors. Those are supposed to be in before school starts. We don't see any problems there. Shepherdstown Middle School, we are still have the bleachers on order. We haven't arrived yet, but we're going to be pouring the concrete within the next 2 weeks. And when they arrive, we'll be putting those up. Blue Ridge Elementary, the roof work is underway, and we're still on schedule to be completely watertight before the start of school. We will have to do some metal capping perhaps on weekends if it gets pushed back any farther, but all the bricking is complete, all the rubber's complete, it looks really good. J-High, the turf field is still under construction. As you may know, the weather has not been kind to us with the rain and the thunderstorms. We are still, however, on track to complete it by August the 6th. This is still ahead of any scrimmages or soccer games. Soccer begins on August the 13th. So keep your fingers crossed for good weather. The J-High AD, the coaches, and Brandon Caton are working on practice schedules. The field is going to be wrapped up prior to the first event on there. There will be a football scrimmage on there on August the 13th. The tennis courts have started as of July the 23rd, and again, we have an expectation that those will be completed certainly before the start of the season, start of school. Wildwood Middle School, contractors wrapping up the final grading around the outside of the fields, and the concrete for the sidewalks will be started next week. The goalposts are to be installed no later than tomorrow, which we're pretty excited about. No one could be more excited than Mr. Vines if he's still. I know. I was waiting for a little whoop whoop from back over there because there's a lot of joy in Mudville over there. Let me tell you. Washington High School, the tennis courts are finished at Washington High School. They are a thing of beauty and joy. I saw on here that Chris Walter is in the audience. Congratulations. And speaking of which, Wright Denny Intermediate, the roof is flashed, rubber installed. We do have some metal capping that still needs to go on there. As soon as it arrives, it will be buttoned up and finished. Not my words, that's apparently an operations term, buttoned up and finished. But I'm very delighted for Mr. Ben Mahoney that his class will no longer be flooded and all the students have to sit on one end while an inch of water gets mopped away from the other. TA Lowry is underway. The chiller at long last has arrived. Thank you so much to Brandon Caton and the maintenance staff who were putting these orders in a year ago, getting out in front of delays. We are still seeing some delays, but we have folks who are way out. Installing the chiller, we're waiting on valves. Still a good bit of work to do. The countdown for school has begun. We are pushing really hard. We have the crews, it's the materials. It's just a backlog of all the different materials. Charlestown Middle School track repairs began on July 21st. They are supposed to be completed today. I haven't been out there. The asphalt has to cure for 2 weeks, in case anybody was thinking about going out there and running around. And then it has to be striped. Ranson Elementary School, we are awaiting the order of the AC units. We've ordered them. We're waiting for their arrival. Upcoming projects. Projects on our fall bond planning list that have entered the planning phase are the 2 new schools, exercise bikes for elementary, the STEAM lab funding for middle and elementary. Washington High School is in the rendering and site planning phase for the gymnasium, and a survey is coming to select the location for the auxiliary gym. We were able to negotiate a fee with the architect. I will say that their standard fee is 4.5%. Miss White, who went back and forth several times. I have to take her the next time I go buy a car from their original standard fee that they charge school systems. She saved us $300,000. So this is money that we're going to be able to use towards some instructional gee-whiz factors at the 2 new schools that we're pretty excited about. We've met with all of the teachers from both of the school planning committees, the ed spec committees. Our next set of committees is we are pulling together a children's committee at each one of the elementary school and to come with their parents, and we will be having a separate group from the parents and asking them to please let their children contribute without a lot of oversteering there. But they know what they want. They know what they're excited about. We have several videos and pictures of other national award-winning schools in the country, and we're showing them to them and asking them for their ideas. So that's one of the things that I'm the most excited about, to tell you the truth. So current maintenance summer projects, line striping. We completed this year's locations. We have a 3-year rotation of striping all of the parking lots. We come back out to the top. We got those done in plenty of time. We will be replacing 3 AC units. These are outside of the Ransom units in the TA Lowry. This is our regular replacement schedule. We also tree trim, replacing multiple exterior doors at CW Shipley, power washing on all the exterior buildings, just cleaning stuff up, all the things that need to be done, stripping floors and waxing them, and all the things that need to be done during the summer, which has been, I will kudos to the custodial staff. We ran a summer school with more than 900 kids in it this year. So all those kids are sitting in our schools, which means that the custodians, who usually can move all the desks out, strip the floors, wax things, they have plenty of time. And we made summer school longer than it usually is. So they are really crunched to get all this work done. We've been bringing in extra help for them. We really appreciate their dedication. K-12 Chromebook devices are in for every single grade level. We're in the process of distributing those to all of the schools. And gearing up for teacher orientation. We want to have a really smooth rollout of one-to-one and our LMS, our Canvas LMS. We've already started creating videos. We have groups of teacher leaders that we're paying to come in during the summer and play with it. If you haven't used Canvas, it is an outstanding system. I took a series of courses through Cornell and they use Canvas, and it is unbelievably easy to navigate. I think the parents are really, really going to like it. You can go on our website, and you can go click on there now if you're interested in Canvas, and it'll take you through videos and different kinds of training, and you can see what it looks like if you're curious as a parent or as a staff person. We're doing lunch and learns with those too. School nutrition, we made the announcement, I believe, that school meals will be free for all students this year. The federal government extended that program. And the Farms to Schools Conference from the West Virginia Extension Office and the Eastern Panhandle will be the first week in August. Mr. Dylan Bites is going there and presenting. I'm going there and presenting. We really appreciate this county has very strong agricultural roots, and we want to make sure even as we grow, and I think some folks may be worried that will get lost in the growth. We love that other people love this place as much as us and want to come here, but we also need to preserve that heritage for future generations, and I really appreciate the work of the Extension Office in doing that. We did get a micro orchard grant at Charlestown Middle School, which is actually pretty awesome. We'll be taking bids on that on July the 28th from organizations to sell us that. I am super excited to announce that Heather Pendell, who was Jefferson County's Service Person of the Year, who's an outstanding bus driver, she was chosen as one of the 10 finalists for the West Virginia State Service Personnel of the Year. Keep her in your thoughts and prayers. She's going up for the interview process. They will make an announcement on September 7th. All 10 of the finalists go to Charleston, and then there is where they make the announcement of who the winner is. She has a fantastic history of volunteerism in the community and has done really well. We're super proud of her. And we also are welcoming on board Devin Pearl for attendance, and there's a lot going on in operations, and they are being very conscientious about making sure that we're transparent, people have information, and have a way to go and get even more information if that's what they want. So that's the end of that's the end of my stint as your Deputy Superintendent for Operations. So.
It appears our concrete for our bleachers at Shepherdstown Middle School is poured the last day or two.
Oh, okay. Well, this is why you don't want me doing this. She could have editorialized.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the regular board meeting held July 12th, 2021?
Don't move.
Thank you, Mr. Cable. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Any discussion or question? All in favor of approving the regular board minutes from July 12th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Citizens' comments. Ms. Ogden, would you be able to time, please? Thank you. All right. Just as a reminder, speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and we will be timing. And you're prohibited from making negative or derogatory comments using a name or position by which an individual can be identified. Comments may not be threatening, profane, vulgar, or abusive, or the speaker will be required to cease his or her comments. If you deviate from the information provided from the speaker's forum, you'll be called out of order by the chair and required to cease your comments. Public comment is not a question and answer period. It provides individuals with an opportunity to express their comments regarding any subject matter related to the schools. All comments shall be directed only to the Jefferson County Board of Education. No person may address or question board members or Jefferson County school staff individually. Board will not be able to respond to comments during public comment, and all speakers are required to provide contact information. First up, we have Karen Buck, followed by Jamone McCall. And I believe some of these are virtual, so Mr. Jason, if you could be alert and help me out here. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Buck.
My name is Karen Buck. I'm a concerned grandparent. This is Board of Education Rule 2315, filed with the Secretary of State. It's called the Comprehensive School Counseling Program. It says that the Board of Education, this Board of Education, these people right here, are responsible for implementing a comprehensive school counseling program annually for the success of their students. And here are the standards for student success. These things go together. Every school has to have them. And the County Board of Education is supposed to make sure that they follow the rules. This is Special Circumstance On-Site Review Report. It's an emergency audit of Jefferson and Washington high schools. A team of 8 officials from the State Board of Education came in and did an emergency audit. Why would they do such a thing? Well, they got a letter from someone on this board that said, oh my gosh, both counseling departments in both high schools are so messed up. We need help with registration, scheduling, grading, transcription, counseling, college application, and parent and student supports. So basically everything that a counseling department is supposed to do was messed up. This audit went on. It's got 24 areas of noncompliance just with the counseling department. Not the English department, not the math department, not the athletic, just counseling. 24 areas of noncompliance. Here's the first 2. The state found that the annual plan for student success was not developed to address the students' needs. They didn't even have copies of these in the schools. What was the corrective action? You better get a plan. Noncompliance number 2. School level administrators do not support and monitor the development of an annual plan for student success. We don't need that for student success. We don't need that. What was the corrective action? You better get a plan. The third item was, of the 72 randomly selected student files that the state asked for, the schools could only come up with 33, and all 33 were incomplete. Now, I'm just a grandmother. I'm nobody. How come I have these documents and the schools don't? How come I can read them and understand them and you people can't? Next May 10th, we're going to vote most of you out and we're going to fire you. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Jamone McCall.
Hello everyone, I'm new to the community. My name is Jamone McCall. I have 2 students in Washington, one in Harpers Ferry. And I've noticed a lot of stuff coming down the pipe since I've been here over the past year. And first thing was the massive attack on the Black Math Genius program. And I'm greatly in support of it. And I do wish that we find a way to expand upon it, because it's great for there to be information that we know, and then we find to discover some new information, better ways to do things. It helps everybody grow. This is what the Black Math Genius program has discovered, and it is going across the country doing great things, and it should be able to do great things in West Virginia. And if you have a problem with that, let's talk about it. That's what people do. That's what adults do. That's how we resolve conflict, talking about it, getting to the bottom of the situation. There's a saying that happens quite often, saying, pull yourself up by your bootstrap. I feel this program is a form of doing that. We're taking our children's education into our own hands. Taking our children's education, making it our personal responsibility to make sure our kids are well informed to the best of their knowledge. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing as parents. That's what the teachers are doing. That's what we pay them for. And this is why I think that it should be not only just incorporated into the summer program, but also incorporated into the standardized curriculum. My next statement is that I noticed that there's a lot of social discourse targeting the board members. And I know that a lot of board members have their hands tied with staff shortages, budgets, finances, stuff that parents don't understand, because we're at work all day. And we know that the board is doing their best and working hard to make sure the children are taken care of. A lot of people have a tendency to forget that it's about taking care of the children. It's about making sure that my kids are taken care of. It's about making sure that your kids are taken care of. It's about making sure that everybody's kids are taken care of. But, like you said, we need people to step up to the plate and come and make sure that everybody's kids are taken care of. If nobody's stepping up to the plate, then yeah, you're going to get people complaining about the kids are not being taken care of. One of the things I am disapprove of, or one of the things I'm dissatisfied with, is the fact that there's a small community that is perpetuating falsities in the public sector.
Mr. McCall, I believe that was your 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
I'm sorry.
It just go fast. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Carmen Bratton, followed by Heather Murray.
Good evening to you all. I also would like to speak about the Black Math program, even though we did change the name, and the only thing I can remember is culturally, I can't remember.
Culturally responsive math program.
Culturally responsive math program, I'm sorry. So I come to you because there is a person who works with the Board of Education who has, I read a comment where someone said that she was segregating students in the math program, and this is a totally untrue statement. How do I know? Because I've been there every day volunteering for this program. So I think that we as the people of our community need to come together in unity and stop all of this, because it helps none of us. It doesn't help our children, and it doesn't help us as human beings. So I really think that we need to try to put the racism aside, put the politics aside, and make this about our children and about educating our children. That program is a great program for education. If you don't know about it, then take the time out to come and find out. There's stuff online, forums that are Asata Moore gives all the time. the board members, if you don't know, come to camp, volunteer if you can, find out what it's about. But I promise you that this camp is not about racism. It's not about politics. It's not about, it's not segregating children, putting all whites and Hispanic children in one classroom and all blacks in another classroom. That's totally an untrue statement. So I've just come to say that can we please just have some unity in our community, and let's make this work together as parents for our children. Thank you.
Next is Heather Murray, followed by Jennifer Krause.
Hi everyone, I'm Heather Murray, mother of 5, 3 who are students in Jefferson County schools. I just wanted to take the moment this evening to publicly thank you all for hearing our voice and concern about the Black Math Genius program. I also want to thank you for doing what you felt was right in the face of public opposition. Although my children aren't having the full 4-week experience, they're having 2. And they have shown excitement about attending. My sophomore has gotten herself up every day to attend. I haven't woken her up at all. Getting herself together, putting on her outfits to go out the door. And math camp isn't something that's at the top of her to-do list for the summer, but she has embraced the experience, and every day she comes home with stories about what's going on. After the second day, she took the initiative to do some homework. It wasn't a requirement, but it shows me the interest has been sparked in her to go above and beyond and take ownership for her own learning. That is what we as educators call student agency, you know, taking the onus and doing it for yourself. And I'm hopeful that that's going to continue as she starts her sophomore year at Jefferson. My son, on the other hand, he's going into 8th grade. He's taken it upon himself to plan a field trip for the students who are attending. This guy has contacted bus companies, and he's compiling research to pitch his plan to the program coordinators and teachers. And so what that shows me is that math matters. And going beyond the books, the worksheets, and the other rote learning practices can bring out each child's true math genius. As an educator, the real life application and problem solving is at the core of what we try to achieve with students in math content. And as demonstrated by my son, he has a real life problem that he needs to solve that's motivated by his involvement in this experience. He too has shared stories as well. He's grouped with students from different schools within the county, and he's gotten to know them, and he's formed some bonds that will likely last beyond these 2 weeks. As we all know, we live in a diverse world, and we look for others to identify with. And coming together in this setting has given him more of an opportunity to develop peer relationships beyond extracurricular activities like sports. I appreciate the effort that you all have made to accommodate our children, and I hope that this will not fade with time. I'm hopeful that this work that you have begun will be a foundation to meet the needs of all students moving forward. I will propose that this initiative not fall by the wayside when the school year begins, but be implemented in some capacity and as many locations as possible. It's imperative that we embrace CRT, or culturally responsive teaching practices, not just for marginalized subgroups, but in an effort to meet the needs of all students.
Next is Jennifer Krause, followed by Deborah Alcar.
I'm going to do my best to fit this into my quick 3 minutes. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Krause, and I'm a parent of 5 children, 3 of which in Jefferson County schools, and I'm here to speak about the COVID protocols in the upcoming school year. COVID is real and it presents a threat to certain populations. However, the vast majority of those who contract COVID have relatively minor cases. It is important that any measures we take are effective, based on scientific evidence, and recognize the distinction between simply testing positive for COVID and becoming seriously ill with COVID. Children very rarely contract COVID, and when they do, the overwhelming majority of cases are very mild. Children do not tend to spread the illness to adults, and any adult who is still worried has had ample opportunity to be vaccinated. Schools that opened under normal circumstances last year did not have a higher infection or transmission rates than those that opened under strict protocols. The CDC reports that only 335 children in this entire country died with COVID, and all of those had serious underlying health conditions, making them vulnerable to a variety of diseases. This year we need to stop scaring our children and focus on making up for a school year largely lost. What does a return to normal look like? First, mandatory masking of our children must end. Dr. Fauci's own emails acknowledge that store-bought masks do little to stop the spread of COVID. Further, masks have many negatives. Children's masks have tested positive for contaminants such as E. coli and tuberculosis. Long-term masking causes skin rashes and contributes to oxygen deprivation and unhealthy levels of carbon dioxide in the blood. Masking stunts the social development of young children who rely on the interpretation of facial cues from their teachers and other students. Masking also makes it difficult for children to develop normal speech patterns. These things are especially harmful to special needs children and those on the autism spectrum. Young, energetic children need movement. It is unhealthy to force children to remain in their classrooms for lunch and for specials. Not only is it unreasonable to expect a young child to sit in one room for 6 hours with no change of scenery, eating in the classrooms has led to insect problems. Temperature checks create an atmosphere of fear for children. I'd venture to guess that very few Jefferson County students were actually sent home last year because of their temperature at the door. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking to me. A policy that scares children while not accomplishing a useful goal should be abandoned. While ensuring that schools are thoroughly cleaned is certainly helpful, we now know that COVID does not generally spread on surfaces. Cleaning should continue, but not at the expense of less learning time for our children. Finally, parents need to be welcomed back into the schools. For young children, the ability to occasionally have a parent present as guest reader or lunch buddy helps with the difficult transition to daily school. Once again, this is especially true for children with special needs or those on the autism spectrum. In summary, our children need to have a return to normal this year. Precautions must be based on scientific fact and proven to work. Many of the precautions, if I may just finish my one sentence, thank you. Many of the precautions we took last year were not necessary to ensure the safety of our children, and indeed some were harmful to them. We should not implement harmful or ineffective policies in the name of simply doing something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Deborah Alcar, followed by Sandra Christian.
It's Alcar, but I don't care.
I'm sorry.
I don't care.
I do. Thank you.
Speak more.
We have some folks who are struggling
Okay.
here, so thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Debbie Alcar. I'm the guardian of 2 Jefferson County students, and I'm a math teacher. I became a math teacher because after working 30 years as a computer programmer, there were fewer women in the field than when I started. That's my lens on the world. I see things as a woman first. All research pointed to math as the problem. Girls were giving up on math. It was not intentional. Teachers did not want girls to fail or to quit at math, but it happened all the same. I wanted to do my part to fix that. Does that mean I do not do my best for my boy students? Of course not. That'd be ridiculous, right? So I've been teaching for 3 years now. Each year, I'm a better teacher for boys and for girls. But I look at my scores and I can see I'm failing my students of color. We're failing our students of color. So they are giving up on math. They are not entering STEM fields. It's not intentional. We as teachers and school districts are doing our best. We don't know how to fix the problem. So your Cultural Unity and Equity Coordinator and your coordinator of elementary schools, grade 3 through 5, actively looked for a solution and found the Math Genius program. They asked me to be one of the teachers. They are committed to all students. All of the teachers are here, and we are all committed to all students. It's not an either-or situation, just like the girls and boys was not an either-or situation. The program emphasizes the importance of math for the jobs of the future for Black and brown students because representation matters. Without women in coding, there will not be applications that address women's specific needs, like finding emergency daycare for single parents, single mothers. It is not intentional. It is a lack of perspective. Men programmers do not see the needs of women as easily as they see the needs of men. It's a lack of perspective. The same is true of people if people of color are not represented in STEM. It is important. The program also discusses African contributions to math. We code every day. It is an excellent program run by caring educators, every one of which I would trust with my own grandchildren's education. It also takes a critical look at how we teach math because we must. We must do better for all of our children. And as a math teacher, I welcome that chance for reflection. And I appreciate the program. Thank you.
Next is Sandra Christian, followed by Barbara Fuller.
So Ms. Murray didn't have an opportunity to finish, so I'm going to finish reading the bottom of her statement, then I'm going to jump into mine. So I'm wearing several hats, so just bear with me. So she left off at, okay, teaching practices not just for marginalized groups, but in an effort to meet the needs of all students. Research shows that sit and get is ineffective. I am hopeful that Jefferson County Schools will continue with diversity training, which will give educators the tools to reach all students in ways they are meaningful and account for the whole child when teaching. While it may seem a daunting task and uncomfortable for many, it is the reality of so many who are not the majority. To be seen and heard is the first step in any change. Seeing a difference is not a bad thing. It means that we acknowledge what we see and then take the steps to respond in responsible ways. It is my personal philosophy that relationships are at the core of education. In order to reach our learners, you have to have trust that is built on relationships. Because of this opportunity and other initiatives within the Cultural Diversity Office, my children have been seen, which in turn will revolutionize their education experience. Please don't let them down. Thank you, Ms. Murray. Okay, well, whereas I'm not as animated as Ms. Buck, I'm going to publicly and personally thank the board, the superintendent, Ms. Tanya Dallas-Lewis and her staff, as well as all the teachers here. I have been at the program for the whole week, so I've seen it firsthand. So I want to publicly thank you for all of your support. Ms. Buck, I appreciate your comments.
Okay.
Okay.
Board,
I appreciate the comment from the other speaker. However, votes matter. So the Cultural Responsive Math Program, we really needed the authorized 4 weeks, but we do thank you for the 2-week approval. I wish the board had attended the training scheduled on June 10th, where the board would have had the opportunity and the experience to experience this exceptional math program. However, instead of attending that training session, someone from the board decided to show up on 2 Fridays ago prior to the start of the program. During the visit, there were no children who were scheduled to attend, nor were there any teachers, volunteers, etc. There were just the summer experience going on. But on Monday, when the program began, there was no board members on site. No one showed up. This program received so much heat, no one, even from the community, showed up. But we were there. Anywho, there is a Facebook post in the Jefferson County Perspective page which stated the children were separated by race. This is the same page that someone from the board is a member of. This statement of separating the children and showing preferential treatment to the black students as well as separating them is a bold-faced lie. And someone on the board is a weak link. I'm here to ask everyone to do your own research. Stop making up lies and half-truths to meet your agenda. There's nothing to see here. Move on.
Next up is Barbara Fuller, followed by Chris Kiter. Kiter?
K-E-I-T-E-R.
Okay, thank you.
You up?
Sorry, my leg fell asleep. Because I'm old. I wanted to thank Coach Vians for his presentation. I know all too well that coaches are a huge impact on children. Coach Kevin Holmes will always be in my son's heart till the day he dies. That's how important coaching is. But last week I had the pleasure of speaking with Josh Brown. Josh Brown was a four-sport athlete, and he was on the right track to success, and he had a really big bump. Sadly, he had to go to prison for his mistake, and he decided to turn it around and become public speaking to engage in our kids to show them what they really shouldn't do. I'm asking if our board can please have this man come back, because he does have a lot of good things to say. And if he can save just one child from making this mistake that he made, he's won. Our kids are really important to us, and they're let down in so many different ways. I'm going to backtrack from Josh, because Josh really just needs to come in and speak to our kids. But then I sat and I looked at this, special circumstances, and I said, wow, our guidance counselors let our kids down. Not doing what they're supposed to be doing, passing kids and giving them credit and not having them be accountable for getting their degrees. Yet we have other kids that receive F's and they're told that they are being left back and there's no chance of summer school. It's crazy. There has to be rules for everybody, and they have to be even. You can't pass some kids and then fail some others. Our guidance counselors, they respond or they report to their principal. You know, in any business, whatever the employees do, it always focuses, it goes up. Well, why aren't our principals being held responsible for what our guidance counselors are not doing? No, instead they're given nice cushy jobs at the board office instead of paying or being able to respond for what they've done or not done for our children.
Next up is Chris Kiter.
I had a whole bunch of stuff to say, but I just had 3 people come up with the Black Math Genius, so I'm going to talk about that for my 3 minutes. I do want to thank the board and superintendent to pass it, because you all woke up this county. I really do. You woke this county up. And I was in the military, been all over the world. This is the most unracist country in the world. Still 20 million slaves in this country. This is not a racist county or a racist country. You make of what you do. And if you support Black Math Genius and CRT, you are a racist. It's saying that no matter what I do, I'm a racist. That's what it says. Look it up.
It does not.
Sir, no.
Look, did I interrupt you?
Their 3 minutes.
You're the one.
No, you shouldn't comment for me. This is a racist program. Look it up. To separate kids, the Black Math, you can change it, do whatever you want to with it, but it's still the Black Math Genius. Look this lady up, Asante Moore. Has anybody done it? Asada, whatever. Tell me, have you ever looked her up and seen what she's put on the internet?
Sir, please address just the board,
Yeah.
or else I'll have to call you out.
So, and it just sickens me. So why did you, I'd just like to know why everybody moved here then. Why did you move here?
Sir.
Why did these people move here then? Leave your liberal views at the state border. Don't come and ruin my area. So I just can't wait till May 2022. That's all I can say. Have a good evening.
All right, in that concludes public comment for this evening. Consent agenda. Do we have
Yes,
any?
ma'am, I have a couple of changes. First, we are redlining both number 29 and number 44. We have a HR process for both committee nomination and for full reference checks, so those we will not be recommending tonight. But one of the things that I am very, very excited about and happy to announce is that we have selected a new principal for Jefferson High School. For those unfamiliar, we have the same process for every administrative hire. There is a parent representative, a service representative, and a professional representative. And it has to be by unanimous consent. If we have a 10-member board and 9 say yes and 1 says no, we don't hire. And that's because it's a difficult job and we need everyone behind them. So I am delighted to announce that the committee unanimously chose Miss Mary Beth Group as the next principal of Jefferson High School. For those of you who may not be familiar, which is hard to believe because she's practically synonymous with Jefferson, is that she's actually been here for 18 years. She started off as a math teacher, not my jam. So excited about that. Taught math for 10 years. She's been at OLC. She's been the at-risk coordinator. She has been an assistant principal for the last 8 years. She has a BS from Shepherd and a master's degree from WVU. And what a lot of you may not know is she actually was selected as Shepherd University's one of Shepherd Uni's finest under 40, and is a Hall of Famer there. She's a heck of a softball player too. I am just so excited, and I think there is a lot of joy in seeing one of our own, Jefferson County born and graduated from Jefferson High, bleeds maroon and gold. But I would like to introduce Mary Beth Group. I know a lot of people are watching on Zoom, so if you could come up and say a few words, that would be wonderful.
So, hi, I'm Mary Beth Group. Just really excited and honored to have this opportunity and give back to what all of you have given to me and continue to make Jefferson and Jefferson County awesome. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say to Ms. Group, I am honored to have her be the 4th and final picture on my wall of my 4 children. As I have one that enters Jefferson, you will be the 4th and different picture on the wall. And I hope that you will stay. And yes, Mrs. Jill, that's another. Thanks, Ms. Ross. Good for you. Very excited. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the adjustments to number 29 and number 44?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Any comments or questions?
I have some questions. I don't know if it requires talking privately, but I did have a question about number 28. So I don't know if I can ask that in public or.
That would, if it's a personnel discussion.
Is there, are you wishing to remove 28 from the consent agenda and revisit that in executive session?
If that's what's required.
All right. Is there a second to remove 28? All right. Hearing no second, the motion fails. Did you have another question?
Yeah. I have some questions about the expenses. So I'm wondering, first Charlestown, the 30,000. What is that?
I don't have it in front of me because I have the Zoom up. for this, but if you'll highlight specific ones that you would like, ma'am, I will be happy to bring back at the next board meeting,
Okay.
a specific, response to all of those.
Okay, well, maybe at TEG, 24K and 32K, is that to develop the app and the website? Because when I looked into it, it looks like they develop websites. Do you know?
Are you talking about Aptgy, A-P-T-E-G-Y?
Yeah, I don't know how to-
Yes, ma'am. That is the company that both hosts our website, our JCS app, and our automated calling system out to parents.
Okay. And there was one more that you might be able to answer without Ms. Marone. Donald B. Rice Tire, 25K. It looks like maybe tires, 25,000 for tires. It's just,
Okay.
my question is there an effort to use West Virginia companies? Because this is a Maryland company. I just wonder how that works. I don't know if you go for bids for tires, but
We go out for bids for anything over the threshold for our procurement, but I will come back with, and you're certainly welcome, it's the will of the board, whether or not you remove items for consideration before moving forward. So the two that you wanted additional information on were for the tires.
oh, well, I was gonna send, there was one more, but I thought maybe you would know about the tires, so that's why there. The other one would be WVU Jesse L MOME 30K. I couldn't figure out what that was.
Again, if you'll highlight those, I'm happy to go back and get additional information for you.
Okay, just that. It says WVU Jesse L Momi.
Well, the extension agent. Is it 30,000?
Yeah.
Our levy has, and that agent's changed like 3 times. Our levy has in it that we contribute $30,000 to the extension office towards the salary of the extension agent who comes and does classes and curriculum and works with our students on the ag program.
Okay, thank you.
So your questions were answered other than the
For
Donald
this,
Rice?
yes. Huh?
Other than the Donald B. Rice?
No, I was gonna just highlight the others, cause it's.
Just give it to me. Okay. Well, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the adjustments of number 29 and number 44 on the human resources portion. Any other question or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Me.
Next up, we have 11, unfinished business. Request approval for a vendor for the bus garage wash bay repairs.
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
White again.
I am being Ms. White again, so please lower your expectations accordingly. So the transportation wash bay floor, we had approached the board previously to put out an RFP for those repairs. And we received 2 bids for that. The recommendation is Mangini's General Contractor Incorporated. And the committees, they had a rubric, and one of the biggest contributing factors, obviously, was the difference in price. Mangini's General Contractor Incorporated came in at $52,000, and the competitor came in at $72,850. So the recommendation is Mangini's General Contractor Incorporated.
May I ask what the problems were there?
For the wash bay floor, sir, the resurfacing of the floor for our staff safety and drainage in there.
How much floor is
Ooh, that is a big wash bay. You can probably, I am horrible. There's a reason I'm not in operations. I couldn't tell you the square footage of this room if you had a gun to my head. But you can fit 2 buses side by side. Well, depending on how your drivers were. It's a pretty big bus. I mean, it's a pretty big room. I can give you the square footage.
Only as one bay, it's evidently larger than it started out.
We only put 1 bus in there at a time. But
The room itself, Gary, she's saying is big enough to do 2, but if you put 1 in it, then you're walking around spraying it off with the soap, and it's dangerous. So we're surfacing the floor so we don't have bus drivers slipping and falling when they're trying to wash their buses, because that's one of the other many hats they wear when they have to clean them. So remember when that floor was put in and they needed the drain needed to happen as well.
I remember they had a problem with where the water was going to go,
Right.
basically.
So basically, it's all going to be done and fixed, and then the surface of the floor will be kind of etched out so that it's safe to walk on, even with soap and water. Where right now it's like a slippery slope, and it's too dangerous to do that. So that's what that will encompass.
Put asphalt on it instead of concrete. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if we can do it because it's inside building, so we couldn't asphalt it. I don't think that would really
I
go well
don't know
with
operations, but I know that. That's probably not
I don't
gonna work.
think that would work.
All right, so is there a motion to approve the vendor of the bus garage wash bay repair as McGinney's for $52,000?
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Osborne, Ms. Ogden. Any other questions?
I always get apprehensive when I see this much difference in a bid, so we need to be sure the same materials that are specified are used because we don't want an inferior job done there.
Good observation.
I always get a little antsy when there's that much difference in a bid.
So there's a motion on the floor. All in favor of approving the vendor for the wash bay repair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And no new business. Madam Superintendent, do you have any comments this evening?
The only thing that I would like to do is to offer a congratulations out to Jefferson County Little League. If you didn't hear, the 10 to 12-year-olds, I believe, won the state Little League championship. It's been a long time coming. Great group. We've had a great partnership with them over the years. And shout out to the Sagers. I read the article in the paper. Apparently your boys have a picture. So thank you to them and all of the work that they do. Like a lot of others in the community, they spend a lot of their own personal time and effort helping our kids really grow into great citizens, and it's much appreciated.
Thank you. And then executive session. We do have an executive session this evening for personnel, and we do anticipate action. Is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
All right. Is there a motion to go into executive session? Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you.